very scary word that I'm going to say. And I want to make sure that you're prepared for this. And I want to tell you that this scary word's coming, because I don't want anybody, jumping out of their seat and running out the door because I say this word. You ready? Everybody buckle down, right? Evangelism. You say the word evangelism, and people scatter because we think it's something that's best left to scholars and theologians, pastors, missionaries, revivalists, and those we would deem Bible thumpers. Actually, to be totally honest with you, the word evangelist only appears in the Bible in 3 places. Acts 21:8, Ephesians 4:11, and 2 Timothy 4:5, where each one of them talk about doing the work of an evangelist per se. That's 2 Timothy, but Acts, Philip is called an evangelist, and then Ephesians 4:11 and is a list of gifts that the Father has given. The word evangelist, I don't do this often anymore, but I need to do this today. So the word evangelist is actually taken from the Greek word euangelion. Okay? Euangelion is what we now call the gospel. Euangelion is just simply a word that means gospel. And therefore, an evangelist is someone who is a gospel sharer. Okay? That's what the word evangelist is from, is this word gospel. Gospel meaning good news. Calling somebody an evangelist is just a name we call somebody who proclaims the gospel. That's all it is. So the question I have for you is this: have you ever shared the gospel with somebody? Have you ever shared Jesus with somebody? Have you ever shared your testimony and what God has done for you? I see head shaking, yes. That means you're an evangelist. Oh my gosh, what? The preacher called me an evangelist. Yeah, you are. You are, actually. If you have shared Jesus, you are an evangelist. Today we're going to kick off a new series, this one from Jude 23, which reads like this. It says, "Save others, snatching them out of the fire, and on some have mercy with fear, hating even the garment polluted by flesh." You notice here in Jude that it says to snatch people out of the fire. And on others, you need to have mercy with fear, hating the garment polluted by the flesh. You notice it doesn't say to hate people. It says hate the garment polluted by the flesh. To snatch some out of the fire and to have mercy on others. What I'm going to start off today is a 3-part sermon series on whether or not evangelism really is our goal. Is evangelism the end goal? And while I think evangelism is definitely part of this, because the gospel does indeed need to be proclaimed, because it's impossible to do otherwise, I think our goal is given by Christ post-resurrection. Evangelism has given us the idea that this is a one-time event and then that's it. I need to get dunked in some water and I'm good. We've got the mindset in church that we get them into water, we get them a Bible, and we move on to the next person. Went to a conference last year. One of our area Christian church minister meetings. And the church had brought in a speaker from the outside. They were part of this, part of a network. They'd written a book and all this stuff, and they're teaching and how most of the churches have been solely about just getting people dunked in some water. It's let's get them in, let's get them baptized, and we've missed a very important part of all of this. Because if we know the gospel at all, we know that getting somebody dunked in some water, and that's just not it. There's more to the gospel than just that. We're going to be in probably, arguably, one of the most famous verses and mission statements for every church everywhere. Because this is like a mission statement for every church. Oh, our mission statement is Matthew 28:18-20. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to methodically go through these three verses, and we're going to break them down, and we're going to find out, is evangelism the end goal? Spoiler alert. I'm going to give you the end. I'm going to tell you the result now. No, it's not. Evangelism is not the end goal. It is a part of it, but it is not the end goal. We have all heard Matthew 28:18-20 countless times, but let's read it again, just to refresh our memories. And Jesus came up and spoke to them, saying, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the very end, even to the end of the age. We have all heard this and read this countless times. You have probably heard countless sermons on this set of verses. And y'all are like, ooh, great, another sermon on the Great Commission. Woohoo! But let me ask you this. Has anybody ever went through and broken it down? Like, actually broken down the words and finding out what's what? Because there are four basic things here, and this is probably what I would say most people are familiar with. Most everybody would agree with this. The four basic things Christ says here is go, make disciples, baptize, and teach. Right? Those are the four action words in that sentence. So let's start with the word go. Go, that word is a verb, but it also acts as an adjective as well. It's kind of a thing in Greek. It's weird like that. So the word go is an action verb, but it's also a descriptive adjective as well. It is quite literally a snapshot event that is not a part of the process. Okay? That's what the language there denotes. Going, to go, is a snapshot event. It is a one-time thing, and it's not a part of a process. In other words, this is to say that Christ has sent us out already. Christ has given us the commission. He said, go. This is a one-time event. Therefore, we have gone. Started with the disciples. We are all sitting in this room today because one of the disciples discipled somebody else. And they discipled somebody else. And they discipled somebody else. And you are sitting in this room because someone was an evangelist to you. They shared the gospel with you. Okay? So we have been sent. And a lot of churches like to say that, well, the first step in the process is to go. Well, we've already gone. We've already been sent. So the fact that churches stay within their four walls is a travesty, and actually it goes against the direct command of Christ, because he has already sent us out. We're there. The next one is to make disciples. Make disciples is the only imperative in this sentence other than one other word. And that is the word lo. Lo, I am with you even to the end of the age. The word lo means to look or indeed. This means, by the nature of this being imperative, this is a command. So this means that when Christ says, indeed, I am with you to the end of the age, that is, to us, it would be a command. He is making a promise. He has promised that he will be there till I am with you to the end of the age. He will not abandon you. He will not leave you. He will not forsake you. That is a promise that he is going to keep. Lo, I am with you. Which means that the only other command here is to make disciples. It is the only command. Which means baptize and teach are not the command. That would get me kicked out of a lot of churches in the Restoration movement. Because I would dare to say that it's not about the baptism. This involves going and making, or to make disciples. Leave the word go behind. I've even got to get this straight in my mind, because this has been hammered into me like over and over and over again. And make disciples. Making disciples involves an initiation and instruction in the ways and the teachings of a specific teacher. In this instant, God or Jesus. Okay? So to make disciples, we need an initiation and we need an instruction. Okay? Baptize. Baptize is the same as the word go. It is a verb that acts like an adjective as well. But whereas the word go is a snapshot event, baptize actually is in the nominative, the nominative, which means that it is a part of the process of being, or learning to be, learning to exist in the moment. Baptize is a part of a process of becoming. Grant used to say that all the time. To baptize is to be an initiation into the process of becoming and learning to just be. So baptize isn't the command, it's a step in the process. Okay, bear with me. Teaching is the last of the four. Teaching is exactly like baptize. It is a verb that acts like an adjective that is also in the nominative as well, which means that it is also a part of the process. So you've got go, which is a snapshot event. Christ sends us out. We are then commanded to make disciples, which involves an initiation and an introduction and teaching into the teachings of a certain teacher, in this case, God. And then part of the process is that we baptize people and we teach people, continue to teach people. What we've done is make discipling about what we do. Discipleship is not about what we do. It is very clear in the language here that it has everything to do with learning. Now you're probably like, well, dude, preacher, I didn't know I was coming here to get a language lesson and an English lesson in church. Well, neither did I, because I'm going to be very transparent. I am not an English scholar. I had to do a lot of study to figure all this out. I am not an English guy. I had to do a lot of study and learning myself to figure out what these words were actually saying. And when it happened, when it clicked, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I've been saying. I just never had the proof to back it up. Now we got it. Here it is. It is staring us straight in the face. The very tenses of the word indicate what exactly. You ready? Words matter. And how we choose to phrase things when we are talking to people about the gospel, they matter. Words matter. Because they can mean anything we want. We've got to make sure that we are being very clear. So let me break this down and put this into words, because we don't want to have to be an English scholar to learn how to to deduce what all this is getting at. So what does the Great Commission mean? This means that making disciples is the command, not to baptize, not to go, not to teach, and not to evangelize. It is to make disciples. Making disciples must come first. What the Restoration movement and it's not just the Restoration movement, but what mainstream Christianity has done is put the focus in the wrong place. We've made it about baptizing into the command and not making disciples. But what happens when we put baptizing as the main focus is that we completely leave out making disciples and teaching, which both involve teaching and instruction. Or what we do instead is we do indeed teach, but we teach people to do things, and we make it about our behavior and behavior modification and not about our worldview. I can't tell you, I had, when my grandma was alive, I had multiple conversations with her. And she would just be like, Grandpa would be over reading his Bible, and Grandma would be like, he just reads that Bible and reads that Bible. And she's like, I just don't understand. I just don't understand what it's saying. I don't get it. I mean, I know the way things are, but it's just too difficult. Sherry has said that to me. My dad has said that to me. And it's not just family members. I've heard this from people all across the board. They're like preacher, I don't understand. I can't read it. I just don't comprehend I can't understand Scripture like you do. Well, here's the thing. Number one, God gives gifts to different people. That's why I'm a preacher, because God has given me the ability to read the Scripture, understand it, and try an attempt to clarify and proclaim what God is saying in the Word. Not everybody is a scholar. And if you have trouble reading the Bible, my suggestion is contact me. I will take you through finding a translation that you can understand. We have got a ton of English translations. There are some languages, there's only one translation, and that's it. Well, in English, we're fortunate to have the NIV, the NLT, the ESV, the ASV, the NASB, the HCSB, the KJV, New King James, like, right? I mean, it's the message. Yeah, there's endless numbers of possibilities for you to be able to read and understand. But part of making disciples is an initiation and instruction in the ways and teachings of a specific teacher. It's God. And is that behavior? No, that's not. It is teaching the proper worldview of God. It's quite literally starting at the beginning of Genesis and instructing your way forward. That takes time. And we can't rush through it. Brandon down in Hinton was, oh gosh, this was a few months ago. He was studying for a sermon of his, and he came to me and he was like, did you know that in the early church, he found this old church document, like from the 2nd or 3rd century, and they had all of these things. Their initiates into the Christian faith did nothing but learn for 2 to 3 years. They weren't baptized for 3 years. They had to go through and prove that they believed before they were baptized. Now, I'm not saying we need to do anything like that, because it becomes a litmus test, and it's like, oh, no, you got to do this and this and this. It becomes legalism. No, I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is that what I think we've done in the church is we get things too fast. Now, somebody comes to me and wants to be baptized. I'm going to have a conversation with them, and we're going to talk things over. And ultimately, I'm not going to deny somebody that, because here's the thing. I was denied baptism. This was in St. Louis at Watson Terrace, and I really was convicted that I needed to be immersed. I was like, man, I really need to be immersed. And the preacher was like, well, you're Catholic, right? And I said, yeah. He's like, well, you've been baptized, you went through First Communion, you've been confirmed and all that stuff. And I said, yeah. He goes, well, you're fine. I really don't think so. This is not what I know. I vehemently disagreed with him. Fast forward 3 years, I was eventually immersed. I'm not going to deny somebody if they are saying, hey, I need to be baptized. I will have a conversation with you, but I'm not going to deny you. But sometimes understand that just because we get somebody wet doesn't mean that you're saved. Because that's not the saving. It's not the water. It's not the water. This is about being confronted with the living and active God. Baptism is a response of that. Thank you. Phone went to sleep. So what this is about is this is about the proper worldview of God, and it's about starting at the beginning and instructing your way forward. Now, and again, I'm not saying that we should withhold baptism, but what I'm saying is that we need to be a heck of a lot more purposeful in our instruction of people. We don't need to get people baptized, give them a Bible, and then teach them to do. We need to get them baptized after having a conversation. We need to give them a Bible and tell them to read the Bible, and let's have a series of conversations. This is one-on-one discipleship. This is the way it should go. It should be one-on-one. This is why Christianity has a worldview problem. Remember the statistics that I went through earlier this year? And that like less than 10% of Christians actually have a biblical worldview? That actually most people are a hodgepodge of different worldviews? It is why Christianity has a worldview problem. It's because we're not teaching people properly. It is why we have so many denominations, because we don't understand, well, this is what I think. Well, no, this is what I think. Well, I don't agree with you. We can't fellowship together. And we get so many different denominations that they all think that they're going to be the only ones in heaven. Where was that? We were talking about a Methodist church this week. And the only people allowed to play on the playground is if you're a member of their church. Or go to the movie night. For the life of me, I'm like, do they think they're going to be the only ones there? That's the old joke where the guy gets to heaven and he's standing at the pearly gates, and St. Peter's standing there, and he's like, hey, your name? What's your name? And he looks down the list. His name's on the list. He's like, oh, come on with me. And he's walking through the mansion of God, and everything's big, and he's showing them what's through each of these rooms and each of these doors. And the guy goes, what's that last door down on the right? And he's like, oh, that's the Baptist. They think, don't go in there because they think they're the only ones here. Yeah. We all think, it's like we split up into denominations, and we think we're the only ones who are going to be there because we're the only ones who are right. Wrong. You don't have a corner on God's worldview. This is all a work in progress, and we all can be wrong, which is why I say from the pulpit, test me and test what I say to the scriptures. I could be wrong. I could be full of beans. It is also why we have so many infant and children Christians running around in the faith. When we go to have conversations with people, and let me ask you this, because look around in the room, most everybody in here is probably, I think, been baptized that I'm aware of. Or going to be today, yeah, or too young. Let me ask you this. When you were baptized, did anyone sit down with you to count the cost of being a disciple of Jesus? I see a couple of heads nodding yes. It's been too long ago. I understand that too. There wasn't with me. Casey didn't walk me through that I remember. I've slept since. I'm like Mary. I've slept since then. He may have. I don't rightly remember. But not that it's sticking out in my head. We're going to talk next week about counting the cost of following Jesus, because there are 3 principles that he goes through in that section, and then rounds it out by talking about being the salt. And if salt has lost its saltiness, then how can it be made good again? It's going to be a very important sermon. You will not want to miss it, because counting the cost, it is huge, because there is a cost to follow Jesus. Because I'll give you the long and the short of it. Next week's sermon is not about you. It isn't. It is not. Everything that Jesus talks about, and we're going to go through next week, it is not about you. It is going from self-centered to selfless. That is the cost of following Jesus. That is the cost of making disciples. Because making disciples is not about what we want. God never asked me what I wanted. It took him 1.5 years to get me on board with this move. I'm usually pretty resistant, because I want what I want. I'm very stubborn. I am very stubborn. Very, very stubborn. And hard-headed. And prideful. We come by it honestly. It's okay. It's a family thing. Yeah. It's a family thing. Big idea. You ready? Make disciples. Baptism, teaching, instruction, evangelizing, sharing the gospel. It's all part of making disciples. We have been sent. Let's leave the parts of the process where they are and simply focus on making disciples. Baptism is part of the process. Teaching is a part of the process. Evangelizing is part of the process. Even though that word does not occur in that sentence there. But I can make a case for that in other places. This is about the gospel. Leave the parts of the process where they are. Let's not overanalyze things. That's one of the biggest lessons I've learned out of this sermon today, is the fact that let's not overthink this. Let's keep the parts of the process that are there, and let's put the focus on making disciples again. Let's not worry about the details, because the details will work themselves out, and they always do.